morning to everyone. I'm Antoinette, and we have a great workshop. I love these virtual workshops because we can come in, share this great information. Today, the topic is going to be supply diversity. And we at WEOP, we talk a lot about federal contracting, but we want to really start driving home the fact that supply diversity and federal contracting kind of work hand in hand. Because as women in business, you can leverage you can leverage your certifications, the WSBs and the EDWSBs, to leverage those private companies who are mandated by law to subcontract out with women and minority-owned companies. So today, in a very broad view, we're going to shine a light on supply diversity and how it intertwines with private contracting. And we have some great examples. And I want to take this moment to introduce Varsha, who is she's been volunteering with WEOP for quite a long time, but Varsha has a wealth of experience because she's worked with some major companies in her role as, and Varsha, I'm going to let you introduce yourself out of it and talk about what you've done with contracting and your experience, because that experience is going to help the entrepreneurs online today. So just provide an overview of you. I want to thank you for being part of WEOP because she's a business advisor, and she's also here for any of the WEOP people who want to have consultations. So Varsha, share with us your background in the contracting world, the kind of things that you do. And I know she's been working with multi-million-dollar contracts. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Now you have your presentation that you're going to contribute.
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Antoinette, and hello, beautiful people. Erin, I love your glasses. I absolutely love them. So a very quick background about myself. So I've been, I think, in the public sector and private contracting domain, I've been working for the last seven years. And currently I'm working with a company that has a revenue of about $1.9 billion. So we do deal with pretty large contracts, but in my previous experiences, I worked with 36 different state and local and federal agencies. We worked with Fortune 500 companies majorly as a subcontractor. So I did think that I could add a little bit of value when it comes to, becoming a subcontractor as a women and minority-owned company. That was what my previous company was. My current company is also a woman-owned company. So I do think I could add a little bit of value. So yeah. My experience has primarily been towards acquisition of the contracts and then management and program management of those contracts. So I hope to share some of those insights with you. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my presentation. We did do a test run and it was working fine. So let's see if it still works. Tasha, it's visible, right?
Yes, it's perfect. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yes, will this be recorded?
Oh, Rhonda, yes, we will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we're recording now.
All right, great. So in past couple of workshops, we did talk about federal contracting and how to approach the contracts, majorly as a prime contractor. I think we have talked about the set aside and source sought notices and sole source contracts. In this workshop, I think we'll be putting a lot more focus into the supplier diversity, because being a women-owned small business, I think there's a lot of leverage that people can take, in terms of participating into the larger contract. If you cannot go for a contract by yourself as a prime contract, there's tons of opportunities out there where you can perform a portion of the work and still have some kind of revenue sort of coming through. So I'm not sure how much you're aware, but supplier diversity is making its way. It has been in the public sector domain forever. But recently, if you look at the private sector, commercial, as we call it, in the large commercial corporation, I think a lot of the corporations are kind of, solidifying their goal to spend anywhere between 5% to 30% of their annual procurement spend towards the diverse companies. And there could be a bunch of different, categories that can fall into: women-owned, minority-owned, HubZone certified. You could be, service disabled veteran. It could be a veteran-owned company. So there are a bunch of different categorization. But at the end of the day, if you do have a diverse business, there are opportunities for you in federal, state, counties, a school district, basically all the public and commercial companies that you can think about. Now, there are a lot of incentives provided, a lot of tax incentive provided to the agencies and commercial companies if they allocate their procurement spend towards the diverse companies. So it's in their best benefit to include more of the diverse companies in the contract and the procurement contracts that they're releasing. So there are opportunities available. We'll talk more about it in the next slides. And once again, the supplier diversity goal or supplier diversity spend goal could vary anywhere between 5% to 30%. If you look at the state contract or the state agencies, they are actually making pretty good progress in that, because the state of New York, when I was working with them previously, they had about 35% that they actually achieved, the spend towards the diverse companies. So there are a lot of opportunities. Now, a quick overview. If you're looking at federal domain, because I know a lot of the participants here are interested in the federal contracting per se, we have talked about subnet and related database in the previous workshop. So let's understand them a little bit more. Now, US federal government, all the agencies that are procuring, they are mandated to include a supplier diversity goal and actually make aggressive goals towards it if they are going to procure services over $700,000 in one single procurement. And if it is a construction contract, then over $1.5 million, if they have the entire project budget, then they do have to include the diverse companies as a subcontractor. And they are also mandated to release a quarterly audit report. It's not in the presentation, but just for the information, they're also mandated to release a quarterly audit report where they mentioned that what kind of subcontractors that they were working with and what was the spend and what was the percentage of the total procurement value that was allocated towards those companies. So FAR 19.7, I think this is one reference that you can read a little bit more about how the subcontracting program works when it comes to the federal space. Another amazing database, and we talked about this in the previous workshops too. Another amazing database is SBA Subnet. This is where you can actually see direct opportunities listed where prime contractors, which are basically the direct contractors to the federal government, they are posting their requirements that, okay, for so-and-so contract, I'm looking for a subcontractor. And, then they would specify if they're looking for a veteran-owned business, if they're looking for a WSB, which is women-owned small business. So you can see all those opportunities listed there. So I think it's a great database to kind of, sort of go through and understand how the database and the search functionalities work there. I would highly, highly recommend to kind of, have a look. And not just solicitation, you'll also get to know the source sought. So companies are trying to understand what kind of subcontractors are out there or what kind of diverse companies are out there. You'll also see the outreach events where an agency might be just inviting the diverse companies to kind of, take a look at what might be coming up for them. And these outreach events, they do take time, but trust me, they are helpful. They are helpful for you to get the information, to know what to look for, and for you to kind of build a relationship, because relationships are the key, regardless of federal or commercial space. And trust me, in my 5 years of experience, none of the procurement has happened with the relationship with the supplier diversity officer. So I definitely would put my emphasis on it.
Varsha, before you switch that slide, I want to emphasize that a lot of times entrepreneurs are not thinking about looking at those subcontracting plans as a way to identify potential opportunities. And I really think that's a missed opportunity because, like you stated, if everybody notices in the chat, if you want to review that FAR 19.7, there is a site online, acquisition.gov, and I did put that in the chat. You can go on acquisition.gov, review any chapter of the FAR, for example, FAR 19.7, that clearly outlines that $700,000. But I think in this, I want to emphasize the fact that these small commercial companies, any commercial company getting a federal contract is mandated to do a subcontracting plan. So I think that a strategy could be, and back me on this, Varsha, that the entrepreneurs should look at those subcontracting plans, because you may look through that subcontracting plan and find an opportunity that you can have a discussion about with that particular prime company. And Varsha, can you echo me on that?
Absolutely. And a lot of times you would also get the contact information of Because, when companies creating a subcontracting plan, they actually sign a subcontracting officer, a supply diversity officer to that particular plan. And that is the sole person responsible to execute that program and make sure that the program is in line. So yes, I would definitely recommend that. All right. And once again, we're just going a little bit back and forth between the jargons that you'll see in this space. And while you're talking to people, they would mention some words that, okay, what is that? So diverse spend, as I think by now you guys would understand, but diverse spend is basically the amount of money that the companies are spending, basically their procurement budget that they are spending towards the diverse company. So a lot of time in the procurements, if you are, for example, acquisition.gov, you're looking at an upcoming contract. And the contracts or the RFP, if you're looking at one RFP, it would very clearly have a subcontracting section. If you'll just do a control F on that contract, on that RFP, you'll see a subcontracting section. And you'll also see very clearly mentioned that the agency is expecting, or whoever is the client, they are expecting at least 25 to 30% of this entire contract allocated towards a diverse company. So that is very easy to sort of navigate. Acquisition.gov is a great place to begin with. If you do like an upcoming opportunity, I would suggest to kind of go through the RFP document of that opportunity and see what kind of subcontracting goal is there. Majority of the agencies, you'll see anywhere between 15 to 30% in government, but in the federal, it could also be lower, but for sure that goal is going to be there. Now, one other very quick thing, what qualifies you as a diverse company? So women-owned, minority-owned, I mean, that's I think pretty much everybody realizes that. But if you are a veteran-owned business, if you're a service-disabled veteran-owned business, if you are a disability-owned business, if you have a business in a historically underutilized business zone, which we call in short as hub zone. For example, North Carolina, if your business is there, you could be hub zone certified, but other states do that as well. So if you're a hub zone small business, there are, in many of the contracts, there are actually a certain percentage which is allocated towards especially veteran-owned business, minority-owned business, women-owned, and hub zone certified. So I would say when you are looking at those procurements and RFPs and requisitions, do keep your eyes out for that percentage, because trust me, when you are reaching out to a prime contractor, you can highlight that, hey, this contract has a 15% women-owned small business goal, and here's my certification. I am certified, or at least I qualify for that diverse spend. So that could be your sort of go-to move.
And Varsha, I want to say a lot of companies make these public announcements about their diverse spend. They might say, yes, we did $50 million in diverse spends. And that's why these certifications play a very important role, because they're actually counting and tracking those dollars. I think AT&T, and they make these major announcements about their participation with the diverse spends. That's why that's a very important term and I didn't know the term at first. I would talk to, contracting officers, especially in the corporate space. They were always talking about our diverse spends. Yeah. So that's a very, very important term, because they are tracking and counting those dollars and making statements about how they're spending money with all these different categories.
Absolutely. Somebody has a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of getting all of these certifications. Okay, I've applied for the hub zone. I applied for the women-owned business. I'm in the middle of DBE. I'm in the middle of a whole lot of them. Mm-hmm. So I'm in a standstill I'm waiting on some, response. I'm in that holding pattern, because I'm just now applying for all these things. I am a part of WEOP. Is there a way that we can just make sure that we're applying for some of these things right, or just making sure that we're getting qualified for this? And then is there someone or some help that we can just make sure that we're doing it incorrectly? Because hub zone, I thought you just in a hub zone and you could just be qualified. No. Hub zone is one of those ones where I'm applying. I applied and I was like, yeah, I applied. Then they came back with a whole bunch of toolkits and give me all of this in 3 days. So, a part of WEOP is anyone that's can help us walk through kind of some do's and don'ts of making sure that this stuff goes through.
And let me answer that because, we have a proprietary course that we teach on a regular basis. However, when it comes to those certifications, we recommend, we remain partial, first of all, on the third-party certifiers, right? But we
Right.
tell them that, first of all, and we're going to talk about this in the presentation, you need to have a certification strategy. So we begin by telling our WEOP members, think about the SBA certifications first, because guess what? There's no cost. And they're
Yeah.
so they're applicable across different socioeconomic backgrounds. You can do hub zone, you can do veteran, you can do disabled, and you can do the WSB and the EDWSB. So we say start small. Just think about what the SBA has to offer, because they have a whole portal that walks you through qualifying and everything. So we say start with that first. And then once you get the federal certifications, because federal crossings is a supply diversity and all that, then you have to study what certification makes sense for your business. Just because you're a woman of color doesn't mean that you should immediately go after NMSDC or GWPC or all. What makes sense for your business? What's your strategy? So if you start off small with the free certification with the SBA, then start developing what we call a contracting plan of action and decide who you want to do business with, and then what certification makes sense. You want to do state, you want to do county, you want to do local. But if you don't have a plan that you're working from, then you're going to be all over the place. And then you're going to think you have to have every certification in the world, which if you just start with the focus, and we train in federal because federal provides this plethora of information. If you can master federal, you can master any entity. So that's where we start. And then we tell women to do a contracting plan of action. And then with that, you can decide specifically who you want to do business with, and then align a certification. Does that make sense?
Right.
That puts some order to it. And then Varsha, I want you to echo what.
Yes,
Right.
it makes sense. It makes sense.
So,
Mhm.
so there are a couple of things, right? I mean, it's great that you have applied for a bunch of certification, and I know it can be a grueling process majority of the times that you don't know what's going on when they are going to give you the certification.
Yes.
I think a couple of things to actually do before you apply. For example, if you look at Washington Metro, I'm just taking a random example. If you look at Washington Metro, they recognize disadvantaged business entities, DBE, as you call.
Yes.
So technically, all the minority and women-owned companies and hub zone companies fall under disadvantaged business entities. So some of the state agencies, if you'll see, they only recognize, MBE and WBE. They don't recognize DBE. Some agencies would recognize DBE. So I think what Anton is saying, a good thing would be to kind of target the kind of agency that you're going after. Federal, your SBA, WSB certification is good enough, right? If you're going after the commercial, they may recognize SBA, they may have some other requirement. And this is in general, I'm talking, if you're targeting the state agency, they may have some other kind of requirement of the certification. For example, state of New York wants the companies to be certified by the state of New York as a small and diverse and minority and women-owned company. So you have to kind of choose your certifications wisely. The other thing, while you have already applied for the certification, the good idea would be to just reach out to them. And trust me, it sounds pretty naive that, yeah, this is a no-brainer. We are going to do that. We're going to talk to them. But I think just reminding them that you are running after a deadline is coming through, and you do want to have that certification. I think Lakila is not on the call. She was talking, oh, she's there. No, she's not. So I think she was talking about her certification, and she, I think, probably waited like 5 weeks and she couldn't hear back anything. She reached out to the person who was taking care of the certification. So you do get a point of contact. If you don't have a point of contact, then reaching out to the person taking care of supplier diversity, wherever you have applied for the certification, that's a good place to start. Because
Okay.
you are a diverse company. They are going to be your advocates, and they can be your first point of contact. So reaching out to them is completely okay. I would suggest that can be your best bet if you don't know the
Thank you,
status of your
because I need to
certification.
do that because I have I have some circumstances when it comes to like the hub zone, that because they're asking for a specific thing. Give me your payroll, give me this,
Yes.
and give me that.
Yeah, they do.
Detailed
And I'm
information.
like,
Yes.
well,
Yeah.
my nearest pay, I have like, yeah.
Communication always helps, and in all these cases, if you are reaching out to them directly, it's completely okay, unless it's about a particular procurement and you want some, non-public information. I think it's all good.
Okay.
And I just want to, and Rhonda, and answer you regarding being a WEOP member, what we're trying to do is bring professionals like Varsha in front of our members so we can have detailed conversations about this. Like, that's what the presentation this morning is all about. Saying, let's talk about the certifications. Let's talk about what's advantageous. And when you get your evaluation from this particular workshop, provide us with like, what other information would you like us to showcase so we can keep bringing to our members valuable information that's going to help them take their business to the next level. And we try to have group sessions that feature our professionals, because some of the women cannot afford to have private consultations. So this workshop today is kind of demystifying to help talk through federal and supply diversity. So we will continue to do that. We want to hear from our members in terms of other things that they would deem would be valuable. We have one more question. April has a question. April, you have your hand up? Okay, Varsha, keep moving. She didn't answer.
I think she's trying to speak, but she doesn't have
yeah, I think her
audio.
Okay.
Yeah, I think her audio doesn't work because she's not on mute. But yeah, you can post a question on the chat. I mean, we'll definitely take that up. Okay, so next thing, moving up, as I said, there are going to be a bunch of different terminologies. Tier 1 and tier 2 vendors is very heavily used in this space. So basically, tier 1 vendors are nothing but the prime contractors. So here's something that you got to understand. Prime contractor is the company that is solely responsible for executing that contract. If anything goes wrong, if there is a special liability, the prime contractor is responsible for it in majority of the cases. Then comes the subcontractor. So subcontractor in the broader term performs portion of the work that is contributing direct towards the diverse spend of that particular contract. And these subcontractors are directly managed by the prime contractor. So this is basically the term. Tier 1 vendors are the prime contractors that are working directly with the client. They are going to be the communicators with the client. I have not seen a lot of cases where subcontractors are allowed to work directly with the client or have communications directly with the client unless it is specifically mentioned in the contract. But in most of the cases, subcontractors will work with prime contractors, get the task orders from the prime contractors, get the payment from the prime contractors, and they will be there. Subcontractor will solely communicate with the prime contractor in all cases regarding the contract. So these are just some of the terms that you might hear as you're walking this space. Now, in a lot of cases, tier 2 or tier 3 subcontracting spend is counted towards the diversity spend. So you don't have to worry too much about that. In majority of the cases, it will be counted towards the diverse spend. However, you can look at RFP always to see if there is anything, anything regarding that's mentioned. Okay, now couple of things, and I know this is a very weak sort of transition of slides, but couple of things. Now, if you're looking at purely commercial space or private sector, as we say, and you talk about companies like Amazon and Walmart and Wells Fargo and so on and so forth, right? There are a couple of steps that you should take as a diverse company before you actually start doing any business or having any conversation with them, because trust me, they have tens and thousands of companies registered onto their supplier diversity portal. So it does become very tiresome to kind of have that conversation. Couple of steps that you can take, and this is where the conversation, and trust me, I'm telling from my personal experience, I was trying to have a lot of conversations with companies like Capital One and Raytheon and ExxonMobil and so on and so forth. Their first question would be, are you registered on our supplier diversity portal? And you're like, no, and they'll be like, yeah, here's my card and here's a supplier diversity link to register. So I would suggest before even you get to that space, it's free of cost, it's completely free of cost, it's not going to charge you any amount. You should register and create your profile onto the supplier diversity portals of large commercial corporations. You cannot do this in cases of government procurement, federal agencies, counties, states, they don't do this. But in terms of the private space, you should definitely register your company. If you'll just type on Google, Wells Fargo supplier diversity registration, the link will pop up, trust me. You can just go on there. It's a pretty huge form of like 5 pages, which will ask your company information, your capability statement, what are your NACES codes, what is your SIN number and what is your UEI number, things like that. So have those information handy, register onto their portals, make sure if you're uploading any certification, or if you're declaring that you are SBA qualified, a small size company, you always keep that up to date. You also get a place to upload PFs and things like that. So always upload your capability statement. So here's how it works internally, because we had our internal supplier diversity management system. If I'm looking for a company having cybersecurity specialty, I'm not going to look at by the keyword. I'm going to just directly search by the NACES code. I'm going to put the NACES code in the system. It's going to throw at me all the companies that have that NACES code listed in their capability. And then I'm going to look at that. Okay, where the company is located, do I want to really open their capability statement, things like that. And it's always good to have your capability statement uploaded, preferably not more than 2 pages, because unless it's specifically asked, people want to see something really short and that tells the story about your business, things like that, and mention the great things, the kind of projects that you worked on, what are your sweet spots, capabilities, things like that. So registration is the first step. It's very crucial. It's great. So definitely do that before you initiate any conversation with the supplier diversity officers. Now,
quick question before you get too far ahead.
Yeah.
So first, I wanted to know, when it comes to the tiers, for someone who's just starting out with contracting, should they target a particular tier, like target just being a tier 2 or a tier 1 supplier, or is that really more so about the relationships that you've cultivated?
So yeah, I think the easy term to understand would be a prime and sub term, right? Tier 1 is prime contractor, tier 2 is a subcontractor. I don't think as a small company, if you're just starting out, you should target a larger contract where you are going to be prime, because of the simple, harsh reality that you would not qualify. Imagine you competing against the top 10 companies, right? If it's a $10 million contract or $50 million contract. And also in some of the contracts, there is a specific limit that the contract value should not be more than 1/3 of your company's revenue. So there are those kind of qualifications too. So you should keep an eye out. I think a good place to begin if you're just starting out and you're trying to build your portfolio is becoming a subcontractor, because subcontracting experience can always be added as your own experience, and you can always build your portfolio on top of that. So I think starting off as a subcontractor is a great place. It will always help you if you're targeting a set-aside contract. Let's say so-and-so federal agency said that, okay, we just want to do business with, this contract is going to be a set-aside for women-owned small business, then you would have something in your portfolio to showcase. It does not matter whether it's a prime work or a subcontractor work. So subcontracting is definitely one way to start. And it's, I'm not going to say super easy, but it's comparatively easier.
So Varsha, so basically the tier 2 is really, the tier 2, 3, 4 is really a subcontracting level.
Correct. Yes.
Just to make that clear.
That's right.
And when you talk about this case example, they can get an idea of specifically how that works.
Right. So I'll give you a real-time case example, and we can look at this as well. So let's just say an agency, company A, is a small company and it's a minority-owned, women-owned business. And they cannot execute the entire project. Let's just say if you're aiming at a $50 million project, but you do know that the portion of the scope your company qualifies for. There's a very specific requirement. And I'm again going to take a cybersecurity penetration testing example. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with that, but that's a very specific area of cybersecurity that people do. If your company qualifies for that and you know that you cannot take care of the entire contract, the good idea would be to reach out to a prime company. So in this case, I'm sorry, I'm missing out on the terminology here. Company B, I think, is the prime contractor. So maybe a large company, they may not have that specific, skill set. In many of the cases, what we do as a large company, we create a skill matrix. We list down everything that is there in the contract and that is required in the scope of work. And then we list down that, okay, we have this capability or not. And then we look at, okay, these are the areas that are missing. Let's bring out a subcontractor to perform the work on this specific area. So typically this is the flow. You become subcontractor to a prime contractor. they will give you a contract or a master service agreement of some sort to execute so that you have something of value with you while the contract or project is in progress. Task orders or the purchase order, you will receive from the prime contractor only, not from the client or agency or whoever. You're going to receive it from your prime contractor, and then the payments and the everything, the fee of your services, you're going to receive from the prime contractor. So a lot of times company only perform the portion of the work in the larger contracts, and that's where you should target. If you're looking at a contract, if you want to reach out to a prime contractor, the goodest strategy always is to let them know, hey, I looked at the RFP, I looked at the requirement. This is the portion of the scope that my company qualifies at, and I have great expertise, and tell them all the great stories about it. And I think that's where you add a lot of value. So the tier 2 spend that we are talking about here, the money that is going to the subcontractor, that is the money that is counted towards the diverse spend. And as we previously mentioned, anywhere between 5% to 30% of the contract might be allocated towards that. So and you could definitely look at that. And in cases, there are more than one subcontractors working with a prime contractor on the same project. So that can also happen.
Varsha, you said something about like when in your role, you mentioned something about skill matrix. So basically, when you're looking for, when your company has a $50 million contract and you're looking for subcontractors, then the skill matrix is usually included in the subcontracting plan that the entrepreneurs can review, right?
Yes. So majority of the time, skill matrix is included because you have to make sure what portion of the scope. So usually scope, you will have like references of the sections of, clauses, things like that. So we often create that list mentioning those sections, and we mention what is who is the company that's going to take care of this section. So this is often mentioned in the subcontracting plan, section by section, that this portion of the scope of work is going to be taken care by this company, so on and so forth, then how much money and the timelines and all of those things.
One more question, Varsha, for you. You mentioned about these organizations, they'll search using the NACES code.
Mm-hmm.
Is it important to, when we're registering in these portals, to use the exact same NACES codes that we used when we filed for these certifications? Do they have to match?
Not necessarily. It's just that when you will register for your unique identification entity number, I think that's what it's called, on sam.gov, then make sure that all the NACES codes are always updated, because a lot of times these corporates will ask you to send them a copy of your sam.gov registration, and that's where your NACES codes are mentioned. So it's a good idea to keep them updated. But yeah, there is no restriction in terms of they're going to match something. If you feel that you qualify for a space and then you have that capability, it's always good to include them. Okay, I think we talked about it before, but once again, federal agencies in all of their contracts are mandated to allocate their spending or their procurement or at least that contract value towards the diverse companies. And again, $700,000 for any of the service procurements, and if it is more than $1.5 million for construction projects, and simply by the nature of the construction project, so don't be intimidated by that value. It's just the machinery that's so expensive. So it's not that the project is super large or something. So they definitely have to establish plans and goals for the subcontracting. And once again, this is a publicly available information, might not always be available on the databases, but you can always ask the contracting officer for the previous procurements, subcontracting plans, so you get an idea how these agencies do business with the diverse companies.
Varsha, we have a few questions in the chat. What we can do is, if you want to address questions now, or you want to finish the presentation, we go back. Which format?
You know what, let's take the questions, because while we are answering the questions, maybe we would have already covered some of these slides, so we can just skip them over.
Okay, what did you say? I'm sorry.
Let's take the questions. So while we are answering the question, it may happen that we will cover some of the content that we have on the presentation, so we can just skip them over. So let's take the questions.
Okay, let me see. It says, do some of these diversity government opportunities require you to have performed on previous contracts in the same industry?
Okay, yes, in some of the cases, so they do require you to be certified. For example, if you're looking at some of the state contracts, they would require you to be certified by the state, and they would require you to have the experience with at least the same kind of industry. So yes, that always works, and that's where we talk about building your capability. If you have, for example, worked with the K-12, the school districts, right? You will qualify as a supplier for the school district project. So it's always good to have the industry-related project experience, but I mean, it doesn't stop you from participating, at least as a subcontractor, because majority of the times you'll see the qualification criterias, they are for the prime contractor. So in majority of the cases, unless if they want to include some criteria for the subcontractor, they will let you know in the RFP or the document itself, or in by whatever means they will let you know. But it does not matter if you do have the same industry experience. That's amazing to have.
Okay, another
I
question
hope
is,
that answers the question.
and sometimes it could be that if you don't have the experience, you could work with a prime who's willing to give you a chance and opportunity as
Right.
well. So that's another factor.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, and you're talking more about building that relationship, so they have trust
Mhm.
in what you're doing, and maybe you did it for a corporation or something, and they say, okay, this company can do that. Another question is how to apply for disability-owned businesses.
So disability-owned businesses, you can apply with the state. I'm not sure if SBA has any of those kind of certifications, but you can apply with any of the state that your company is registered with. So you can apply for that certification with the state directly. That is a possibility. I'm not aware of any of the particular platform that provides that sole certification, but the states do.
Okay, and April has an interesting question. She says, I've been trying to find out how much of a tax break percentage the employers get from my certifications, WSB, DBE, MBE. Do you know where I can find this information?
I'm not sure if I got the question. Is the question more like that if a company is certified, do they get the tax break?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
don't
the
think,
question?
yeah, I don't think companies get tax breaks. I think what they do is track,
No.
they more or less track diverse spends. They don't per se, there's nothing in the RS code where if you
So,
do with a certain number of people having
yeah,
certifications that there's a tax break. Not like like in
no,
Georgia, we have the film credits, we have the film tax credits, but no, there's no really
right.
that
So
I,
the companies don't get that to just have the certification. What larger companies get is a tax break. Yes, they do get a tax break to spend the money on the diverse companies. It's actually the other way around. As a diverse company, you don't get the tax break.
okay, Cheryl wants to know what are two examples as a subcontracting work? So I
I'm not
think she's
sure if I
probably
got.
saying, maybe, if I can echo Cheryl, she's saying, what's an example of a subcontracting work? Basically, when you talk about the skill matrix, anything that the contractor may not have the capacity to do or wants to contract out for that particular work, that's an example of working as a subcontractor. That's just what, Cheryl, is Cheryl on
Yeah,
the
I'm
line?
not sure if we are getting the question correct.
Cheryl? Because basically any prime contractor that's looking for subcontractors will outline what the scope of work they have for a subcontractor. So maybe that's what she's talking about.
Yeah, and if you want to understand what your subcontracting experience would look like if you are working on a project alongside a prime contractor, for example, we are building a website, and company ABC, your company, Cheryl, they have done the website design of that website rather than doing the entire website development. That would be your subcontracting experience, that on project so and so you have done this work for this client. So you can directly mention the client and what is the work that you have done for them. That could become your case example or case study or past performance, as we call it in majority of the government procurements.
Okay, and also I
Okay.
think, okay, I'm sorry. Cheryl, did someone have something?
This is Cheryl. I'm sorry, I had to get my microphone
Hi.
on. I was asking those questions about the subcontracting examples. I know Varsha mentioned that as a subcontractor, you can then in turn use that as your own experience.
Yes.
So I have a logistics company and I also have a technical company. I've worked as a software engineer for 15 years and I had a freight brokerage for 6 years. I have my SAM.gov, my WSB, my GWBC, NMSDC, all of that, but I've never actually gone through the process of going after government contracting. I did have someone from the government department that came out to my office and actually sat with me to work on my 8A with me, which I thought that was kind of odd, but she came out and she spent the whole day
Really?
there at my office. Yeah, spent the whole day at
That's
my office.
Somebody
amazing.
from the SBA?
No, 8A.
Yes,
Okay,
V8. Yeah. You get 9 years on that certification.
Okay,
okay.
but I did not go completely through with it, so it's still pending because I was doing so much business just with just regular companies, right? So I have started to kind of get out there and go to some of these meetings and be a little bit more active instead of just behind the desk. And I know Cobb County, for example, I met with the supplier diversity procurement manager director there, and he was just saying, "Hey, just get started. Just get started with something small. It could be something for 2,500. I think it's under 25,000 or under. You don't need. I forgot now. Something you don't need. You can just kind of bid on it. It could be go picking up some
That's the
PCs or
discretionary
computers.
procurement. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it could be small as just going to pick up some computers from Micro Center and bring them to them or whatever the case may be. But just kind of subcontracting, wanting to kind of get started to maybe open up a different department or company, focusing more on the minor construction because a lot of schools are being built. A lot of people are looking for diverse subcontractors to do things like doorknobs or framing, or I mean, you don't have to really have a contractor's license for some of those things. But my question was, how do I change? Another question I had was, how do I also change my NEEX code on SAM.gov? Is that a quick process? How many can I have on SAM.gov?
I think you can have as many as you want. I
Okay.
don't think there is a restriction on the number of NACES code, and there is an option to edit your registration. When you go onto sam.gov, I'm pretty sure there's a space to kind of, go ahead and kind of renew it or update it. I think update is the word that they use, but you'll have to kind of go onto the portal and check. I'm pretty sure you can update that. As far
I
as
know it's the process, and it's very lengthy now.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
it can be pretty time consuming because sam.gov, they don't, just let you change it like 10 times on the fly. They don't let you do that. So there's a pretty strict verification process that they do before you change it. So, but I'm sure it's possible. Very quickly, I'm going to answer your second question, although the answer is going to be pretty long, but I'm going to try to answer that in a very, very quick way. So if you do want to get started with the government agencies, as you said, that a lot of school districts are getting built, I think a good place to start would be to really pen down who are the clients that you want to approach, mark out all the contracting officers, and they're in 9 out of 10 cases, their information would be available on the website of the county or state or agency, wherever you are targeting. The good idea would be to reach out to them and just understand, how do they release their procurement? Is it on their website? Is there on the portal that they release the procurement or the upcoming opportunities or RFPs on? Once you do get a sense of that upcoming procurement, attend the pre-proposal conference. In a lot of cases, they have the pre-proposal conference, either it is in person or virtual, it does not matter. And you can take out the list of attendees. You can see who are the people that are attending, who are the prime contractors that are attending, and approach them with your certification that, okay, my company is certified. I'm interested in participating in this contract. This is my capability that could be helpful. It does not have to be from the same agency or state or government space. You can pick out your experience that you feel are going to be very helpful for this procurement. And yeah, try to build the conversation from there.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Marsha, I have 2 more questions in the chat. We may have to
Okay.
organize, do a session that we specifically
I think
talk
so.
about strategy and certification, because it's so many, answers to the questions. One of the questions is, does the government recognize self-certification as equal to other forms of certification, such as self-certified women-owned small business, self-certified minority-owned, etc.? And that's another whole can of worms, because right now the SBA process the SBA is not allowing self-certification. The SBA now has to certify you. And we did take a group of women up to the SBA to kind of get some of their questions answered, because, you know, with them changing systems, it's taking longer. I've had entrepreneurs say it's taken as long as 90 days to get just the SBA certifications. And then there's another question. A prime reached out to DBEs for proposals stating that they had 27.2% that they had to allocate to DBE spending. Can they utilize a business that has more than one certification? This is the reason for my initial question about how much the certification were.
Okay, so quick answer to that. Yes, prime contractors can reach out to the DBEs. That's why your subnet is there, and that's why, you know, all the opportunities are listed. You should definitely list your company there. But yes, in all, prime contractors can reach out to the subcontractors for any kind of spend. Now, can they utilize a business that has more than one certification? Yes, they absolutely can, but they cannot utilize two certifications in one go. In majority of the cases, they will just recognize your one certification, which is, I mean, I don't think it matters that much as long as they are utilizing any of your certifications. So I hope that answered the question, and or how much the certifications were. I mean, well, that would depend where you are getting your certifications from. In my experience, the state certifications are free of cost. SBA is free of cost.
Yeah, Varsha, most of the state, the local, the counties, most of the certifications have no cost. Hermes asked the question, what other services do certification organizations and councils offer you for the fee you have to pay? And again, what I mentioned earlier from WEOP is that we tell women, because the certifications from the SBA are free, to first go with those certifications and then do your research to see specifically, do you need certain certifications? It's according to who you want to do business with. And like, and Varsha, you can go on with this particular slide, because some of the entities are recognizing other certifications. So that's another factor as you pursue business. So that's the
right
segue into this essential slide. Varsha.
Right. I think that was a great question. And, you know, if you look at multiple companies and their supplier diversity portals, in majority of the cases, they're going to give you the information, what kind of certifications they recognize. As Antoinette said, SBA is a great place to start, because I think that's closer to home. You know, you can get your WSB certification, you can get your SBA, you know, 8A, which is, I think, a great thing to start, but you do get like a time-bound duration and you have to perform in that duration. But you can get that certification. Majority of the companies, they recognize it. So for example, here you see Accenture. Accenture works with federal government, and they do recognize the SBA certified companies' WSBs towards their diverse spend. And you can become a part of the federal contract via Accenture becoming their subcontractor. In some of the cases, if you if you are a small company, and again, you can have a very niche service to offer, and you can become a direct subcontractor. In majority of the cases I've seen, these companies, for example, Accenture, may have, I'm just throwing names out there, TCS as their subcontractor. TCS may further send you, may further have another subcontractor, your company. So there may be like layering of the subcontractor work, but then it hardly matters as long as you are becoming a part of the project, and of course, if you want to. Now, one other thing that you'll see here is Coca-Cola, obviously no introductions needed. So in those kind of websites, you will see what kind of commitments they are making. For example, here you see commits $500 million in additional spending with Black-owned suppliers. So that means that there are opportunities, and once you connect with the supplier diversity officer, you can get more information. As I said previously, private space can be a little hard to navigate. Relationships are going to be your best friend. Build those relationships with the supplier diversity officers and try to get as much information as possible, because they don't put up the information as a publicly available information in the majority of the cases. So this is Porsche here. Once again, you can, see all bunch of different information that they provide. How can you become a supplier? How can you utilize their supplier network? How can you register yourself as a supplier? So a bunch of different things. I think these platforms are pretty informative, especially in the cases of super large companies.
And Varsha, I want to add regarding Portia, we had a representative from Portia come in. She was with the supply diversity area. And I had quite a few entrepreneurs that wanted to do business with Portia. And the first question that she asked them, are you registered? So I think one thing that you can keep emphasizing the fact that when you go to these meetings and sessions and you really want to do business, that's one of the first questions that those supply diversity officers will ask you. Are you registered? They will ask you, are you registered? And then they will ask you what certification you have in some cases. So we encourage our entrepreneurs, especially if you're going to a meeting or a bid conference, or you're going to hear a supply talk, just make sure that if you want to do business with them, go to their site to see what qualifies you to do business, and then do that. And fortunately, one of our entrepreneurs did get a contract with Portia to do some of the things related to their events. So, but she had to go on the platform, register her business, and before she could actually get that particular contract.
Yeah, that's right. Registration is just one step for you to kind of, get started with the company. You don't want that conversation breaker every time you try to connect with them. Hey, are you registered? And your answer is going to be no. So, register first. And I think then you can start building the conversation that's going to be more, that conversation is going to be more productive. Now, another example is Walmart, and I think Walmart has done a great job in increasing their diverse spend and providing even more information. I think they have the whole section dedicated to, what kind of platform that they work with, who are your supplier of the year, supplier of the quarter, so on and so forth. So I think they have done a great job in releasing all of that information out. They are great in terms of answering your questions. So again, once you look at the press releases, I think Antoinette just posted on the chat window that press releases are a great way to see what the big companies are up to. And also at their supplier diversity page, in 99% of the cases, they will have that page. Always go on that page, see what's happening, see what new is coming. Are they going to have an event? Things like that. Events are great. Events are the way to go. So a majority of the events are virtual. You don't have to travel no more. So I think, virtual events are a great way to connect with people.
I want to also add another great way is those pre-bid conferences. They're a great way to connect with people. Like, yeah. Marsha, I think because you skipped over the last slide. What was the slide before that? You skipped over a slide.
I think, my
those
apologies, it was Staples.
Excuse me, I've been to those conferences, some of those meetings and conferences, and I have to say, I find them disappointing because often with time, the ones I've been to where they have individuals like a panel, people speaking, then they give you time to, they say network, but the people that you're networking with are looking for the same opportunities. It's not like a lot of times they're not even networking with you. Like after they do their basic presentation, then they're out. And then you're networking with other people who are trying to get business. And then you walk out like, what just happened here? At least that's how I have felt. And, I did that at Emory University. There were a couple others. And I just feel like it's almost like a check the box kind of activity. Like we had this event, to talk about supplier diversity and how they get in, and that's it. And all the times I rarely get feedback. I rarely get to connect with those key individuals.
Harmis,
I don't know. That's my experience. I don't know about anybody else's, but it's
I have experienced something. Just kind of piggyback. What I think was beneficial for me was actually being matched with companies, like during the matchmaking process. Those events where you are matched based on your industry work better. I got matched with Honda, Home Depot, Uline, a couple of others. So I agree with you though. The other ones, if you don't have a match, you're just there. Everybody's there looking for the same thing. I completely agree.
So let me ask you this question, because what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to reach out to Cheryl. Hopefully I can get to talk to you, Herman. What we need to do is honestly, hey, what do you know that I don't know? compare notes, because even though we're looking for business together, my strategy could be similar to, and I reached out to you, Cheryl, because I've done subcontract before. And hey, what can you tell me that I don't know? Does that make sense? Who do you know that I may not know? And what can you tell me? So collaboration is the new, what is it? They say collaboration is the new currency. We do need to not just say we're just going to just talk to the people who are doing the business. We need to talk to each other and say, hey, what do you know that I don't know that can help you and help you and help you? What strategies do you have? So that's where I'm actually going to be like reaching out to you. What do I know? I can tell you about subcontracting. I've done that before, but maybe you could tell me about where you've done some type of business development with your certifications, because I'm going down the certification road. So that way, when you're having these events, it is, I would say, I mean, just giving some encouragement, actually talk to the people who are on the same road that you are to say, hey, let's give and take and let's get on this road together. So just FYI.
And I want to make a comment to what Hermes was talking about, because when I was thinking about those pre-bid announcements. So when you actually go to, when they're making a pre-bid announcement for a county or a state, or they're specifically saying that we're going to have to bid out on this, that was a way where you can connect with potential primes, because they are looking to do business with, they have to do the subcontracting route. So I wasn't just talking about, the feel good, supply diversity, check the box events, more of going to an actual bid conference. And then another, if you go to a bid conference, you can get a list of people that are there, because the counties, they have to post that. And then another part of your strategy is reaching out to those people individually. But when they are trying to get a contract and show that they are trying to do diverse spends, etc., I think it creates more of an opportunity. So that's what I was speaking about, as opposed to just to feel good, check the boxes, things that we do know that sometimes that's just not as fruitful as the other ones.
Right. And I agree with you, Antoinette, because this is where the time and effort sort of kind of comes in, because not all events are the same. The supplier meets, yes, you'll see all the suppliers there that are looking for business just as you. Pre-proposal conferences, that's where you'll get to meet the prime contractors, the contractors that have worked with the agencies before, companies like yourself, you'll get to meet everybody. And then there are matchmaking sessions, what Sherry was talking about. So there are a lot of larger corporations, UPMC is one of them, out of Pennsylvania. They organize some wonderful one-on-one matchmaking sessions. So you get to see the directory, things like that. So I think all it takes is research and efforts, because not all events are going to be same. You might feed the same people over and over. The first two conversations probably were not good enough. And the third conversation, you are actually able to give them something worth speaking with. So, it does take a bit of effort, a bit of time, understanding the pattern of the event. What can you really expect out of that event? And once again, I would say the supplier meets are great, because you're getting to understand what the agency or the client is expecting from the suppliers. Having all that information is going to be your conversation builder while you're talking to a company that you want to do a business with. So events, definitely attend those. But yes, if you did not get a lot of good responses out of one event, I do understand that. Trust me, I've been on the supplier end and the prime contractor end. I do understand those frustrations. Very quick thing. I think we are reaching end to the presentation right now. Now, you are looking at in the broader perspective, you are looking at the federal and the commercial space, but there are a lot of opportunities in between. So you can look at the opportunities directly with the state agencies. For example, the state of New York, you can look at a lot of opportunities with different departments with the state of New York. They have their own individual contracts, Department of Finance, Department of Health, so on and so forth. And there are counties. Some of the counties have a lot of money to spend, and they do have their own contracts. So you can look at those contracts. The school districts, universities are a great way to go. So there are a lot of opportunities available in between. So we often just talk about the two extreme ends, either go federal or private, but there are a lot of things in between that can help you build your portfolio, not necessarily steer you in any direction, but build your portfolio. If you can get a portion of the work, you can add that to your portfolio and kind of, enrich that experience and add that as your work history, which is very impactful. Okay, Antoinette was talking about the contracting plan of action and a strategy, and what some of the ladies were previously talking about is let's exchange notes, let's talk about what you have done that I haven't done. I think that's a great way too. You know, sometimes you may have tried a couple of different things and it didn't work out. The other person has tried something else that you did not try. So, but this is something that has worked for me as a subcontractor, and we have subcontracted with companies like Deloitte and E&Y, Booz Allen Hamilton, Lockheed Martin, Boeing. Boeing was our direct client, as well as we were working for another client via Boeing. So some of the things that have always helped registration, it's not even a step that I like to include because that's something that you have to do. That's just a basic that you'll have to complete. Other thing, understand your client, understand the agency, understand what they buy. Are you really going to be adding any value? Because what's the conversation that you're going to have with them? Reach out to the supplier diversity officers of that company, because they are the people, their sole KRA, their job in the companies is to promote the diverse companies and the diverse spend through that contract. So they will talk to you more than, more often than none. They will ask you what your capabilities, what are your sweet spot, what are the areas of expertise that you're comfortable with, certification, so on and so forth. So make sure that you keep all those handy. Attend the events. If it is virtual, then definitely do not miss it, because a lot of the companies, they talk about what they are planning on the supplier diversity side. Are they introducing it some other person? Majority of the time, you'll get to meet the supplier diversity officer of that company in that supplier meet. And that person is a great point of contact to reach out to at the later stage and say, hey, I met with you in that event, and I would like to understand more about your supplier diversity ecosystem. Let's talk. And I'm pretty sure after a little bit of nudge, they do agree to talk to you. Pre-bid conferences, again, a great way, because then you are talking directly about the project. So the conversation goes either of the two ways, if you qualify or you don't qualify. So I think that's a very quick turnaround kind of conversations. SBA certifications, any kind of certifications, if you're reaching out to a client or a prime contractor, let them know that you are certified. Make that your subject line or whatever you want, but then highlight that point. Research and create out your opportunity. I think one of the things that a lot of companies miss out on, that having a diverse certification does not guarantee you any business. Trust me, there are a lot of companies out there that have those certifications, that are registered on the portal, that have the right kind of experiences. What will make the difference is the relationship. It's going to take time, and trust me, there are going to be those frustrating moments, but relationship is going to help you secure that contract. So do spend time on that relationship, meeting with the people, attending the events, making your presence, knowing people on the name basis. As naive as it sounds, it does work. So do spend time on that. Well, with that being said, I think we have reached the end of the presentation. I'm not sure, Antoinette, if we have any more questions left, but if we do, we can take that. I'm gonna do the stop share.
And before we go to questions, I want to ask Hermes to share with the group.
Okay, so yes, thank you so much. This was timely. This is great. One thing that I brought up at one of the events that we were at was the idea of having WEOP accountability circles for us WEOP members, where it could be based on the industry that we're in, and coming together, not only sharing ideas, but actually helping each other be accountable for the tasks that are needed to be able to reach our goals. So sharing what those goals are, getting feedback, resources, and then going out and executing, and then being able to have a circle of other members to, celebrate your wins, regardless how big or small they are, and to also talk about some of the challenges. And just like Rhonda said, discuss those challenges. Who knows, there might be someone who could be able to help you go through that or give you advice or support. And so Antoinette and I have been discussing this for a while now, and I believe we are going to, try to form those circles. And I'm really looking forward to all of you who are on this call to think about joining these circles and really being able to get someone to hold you accountable for the goals you want to meet, right? And also provide you the resources and advice that you may not get elsewhere than with people who know what you're going through. So yeah, Antoinette, you want to add?
Yeah, I think that's a good start because, to connect with each other and to understand the pain points, and it might be opportunities for partnering, joint venturing. The contract world sometimes is not easy. So that sharing of information, sharing of resources can be extremely valuable for each other. And, as an organization, we think women supporting each other is very, very important with that knowledge, with that information, with those resources. So having those, what we call the accountability circles, because I'm always pitting women together or connecting or networking. And this provides a formalized structure for how women can connect with each other, without us always being in the forefront of saying, Hermes, call Lisa, or, so we can have that set as an organization, have that available for our members to take advantage of, because like I said, the business world is not easy. And it's supporting each other, to me, is valuable. And understanding how we can do that constructively as well. There's a business etiquette to partnering. There's a business etiquette to connecting, making sure that we understand that as well. They have some peer networking circles that have a whole set of guidelines in terms of the do's and the don'ts, and how to keep confidential and how to not steal the other people's ideas. So just making sure that the accountability circles are providing that for our members, are constructive and informative, and that we have create this great synergy between each other, which is very important. And so I'm glad that Hermes was one of our members that stepped up and said that she would kind of spearhead it. So we're going to be bringing you information about how it's going to be structured. Probably we'll be utilizing a platform. We may be changing from our We Have Women platform, where we can do industry specific things, so we can continue that networking and collaboration. And I will be sending something out to, everybody in the call, because we do evaluations. And if you keep connected to what we do on our website and our newsletter, then you can be plugged into the circles and so forth. But I do want to thank Varsha for this valuable information.
Can I say something else?
Sure, Hermes, go ahead.
I'm not sure if everyone's on LinkedIn, but we can start there for those of us who are. Let's connect on LinkedIn, because the one thing I'm realizing that when you connect with someone on LinkedIn, you're also connected to their community, right? To their network. And so that opens up another side of the network that you may, group of people and possible clients that you may never have thought of. And then also, supporting each other when someone puts out a post or article or whatever it is, but being able to come in and then put the likes and give comments, that helps to boost up the visibility for that individual within all of LinkedIn. So I really encourage, I know I put my LinkedIn page, LinkedIn address in the chat box, but I encourage all of us to do that too.
And it may be,
or Facebook, there's Facebook too, whichever you prefer.
Because we could Hermes talk about doing a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group, and that would get us started. Yeah, we may consider doing that. But I'm going to open it up for questions about the contracting. This is a great time to ask our professional Varsha if you have any contracting questions, or anything related to what we talked about in the presentation this morning, anything you need clarification on the certifications. And Varsha, you did a great job of outlining everything. It was great.
Thank you. And I definitely love the inputs from everybody. I look forward to being a part of that LinkedIn group. I'm excited.
So does anybody have any other questions? I know you really gave us a lot of great information. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So This feels definitely like B2B sales, if you will, when you're trying to connect with a prime or grab a contract. So when it comes to making those connections, is this a space where you have seen some positive results through cold outreach? So I've already started like looking up on LinkedIn, supplier diversity managers and officers, and I'm just thinking about a way to do a cold outreach or cold email to them. And have you seen that be effective?
I would still suggest LinkedIn is the best way because then you're having more person-to-person interaction. You know what I mean? Like people can see your picture and where you come from, things like that. So I still feel LinkedIn is the best way. That's where my team has gotten the best responses. The other things are the events that these companies are organizing because now they are, at the focus of that event. And when you reach out to a supplier diversity officer or manager, whoever is there, is saying that, hey, I attended this event, really loved talking to you or whatever, you want to include. So then they are like more prompted to respond to your query versus a cold email outreach. I'm not sure how beneficial that's going to be, but hey, always keep that on. That doesn't hurt. But LinkedIn and the events, I think they're going to give you the best responses. That's what I feel. And really making a compelling story, just telling them that you are a certified company registered onto the portal. I don't think that's it. You have to really give them something that they'll be interested in. For example, hey, this is what I have expertise on. This is where I think I can help you. Everybody looks for in the conversation what's in it for them. So, the same goes for the reps of the companies as well.
Hi, Versha. This is Michelle. I would like to know if I could connect with you through email after this meeting to discuss RFP structuring.
Absolutely.
Michelle's a student that I talked to you about, so I was going to send you because
she's
I already talked to Varsha about connecting with you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. So I received Antoinette's email that somebody wants to connect. So yeah, absolutely. I think Antoinette is going to send the
I was going to do that
introductory
today.
email.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
no
I'd like to
problem.
connect with you also, if possible.
Okay.
All
right. So I think Antoinette is going to introduce all of us. That's one way to go. I'm going to paste my LinkedIn here. So you guys have that. Okay, there you go. But as far as the email introductions are concerned, I think Antoinette is going to be kind enough to introduce us all.
Okay, so I've already talked to you about Michelle, so I share information about Hermes as well.
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
Okay, so we're at the end of the presentation. I think if nobody has any more questions, we're going to start closing out. And it was Varsha, great information. And I think the next time, maybe ladies, when you guys get the evaluation, if there are other topics you would like us to cover, I was thinking, maybe a good topic would be if we look at an actual contract that has a subcontracting plan, and that gives everybody an idea of like the scope of works and how to really review those contracts, how to look at the skill matrix. That may be a really good like continuation workshop for what we did today.
I think that's a great idea. Nothing works better than a live example, right?
Because Varsha, you can share one of those examples from your group, right? We could just
Sure,
block
yeah,
out.
absolutely.
Yeah, we could just block it. Then we could talk about the scope of works, and that way it's not intimidating, because some of these contracts can be very intimidating. So that way we're looking at it, and then you know what to look for as you review and consider pursuing that entity for a scope of the work, then that could be valuable. Okay.
I think, yeah, that'll be a good thing. I can definitely pull up some of the contracts. The scope of work may or may not be of interest, but I think what we'll try to see is just the general layout of the subcontracting plan, what kind of guidelines are there, terms and conditions, so on and so forth, and how to utilize the contact information on that procurement detail. So I think we can do that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's what we do. That'd be a really interesting topic as well.
I think that would be interesting as well, because I'm over here thinking about, creating that relationship with a prime contractor. And I remember the example that you showed in the presentation, Varsha, about how company A can connect to the client, and maybe they make that connection, like, hey, we've got a prime, but we've got a subcontractor you might want to use. But just also think of different ways of connecting to different primes and
Right. I'll give you a quick tip. Let's just say when you're looking for the pre-proposal, pre-bid conferences for the government contracts, obviously, because in the commercial, there is no such fundamental of companies introducing prime or sub. But if you're looking at a government acquisition and you are attending a pre-bid conference, you can request to receive a list of attendees in that from that conference. Once you get that list, a good idea is to just reach out to everybody. Are they participating in this contract? If they are, then you are the minority woman-owned company, whatever your certifications are, and this is your expertise, and you would like to participate as a subcontractor, and then wait for them to respond and kind of go from there. I think that's a good place to start, working with the primes. You do get the list of all the attendees once you participate in the pre-proposal conference as a public information.
And we have one last question, Varsha, and the Hayden asked about is it the same with registering for the GSA group contracting opportunities? Now we know the GSA is we use the GSA only for research. When we have our WEOP classes, we look at GSA scheduled contract holders and look at who, the NACES code, we research. But for companies that are trying to get on the GSA schedule, there is an entire process for getting.
Well, we just got that. Yeah, we got the GSA Master Schedule 70. Oh my God, it took us 1 year. And we had to get the outside consultation. So yes, it's tough, and majority of the contracts on that, they are pretty large, especially the multiple award schedule, because you do get the regular purchase orders or the small bid opportunities from that. But yeah, if you're targeting that, then that's going to be, I think, the whole different conversation itself, because even some of the agencies, they do like to purchase through the GSA, because GSA itself does not purchase anything. There are agencies that are purchasing via the GSA contract. So some agencies like to purchase from the GSA, other agencies, they just like to have their own contracts. So you have the opportunities available with or without the GSA.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm answering an email. Somebody just sent me a private message saying that thank you. She was saying that the workshop was very helpful. So I'm glad that it was helpful. The information was really insightful. And Varsha, we can all clap for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. It was wonderful meeting with you all, and hope to see you in the next session.